Welcome to Crushed Husband. Please like the video and subscribe. Let's begin. I walked in through the door around 6:30, same as always, tie loosened, mind half fried from work. My shoulders were killing me from hauling around gear all day at the site. All I could think about was sitting down, grabbing a beer, and watching whatever game was on. Sarah was exactly where I expected her to be. On the couch, wrapped in that gray throw blanket she liked, phone in hand, eyes glued to it like it owed her money. The TV was on low, just background noise. She didn't look up when I walked in. Not a, hey, not even a glance. I leaned down and kissed her on the cheek. Dry, routine. She flinched a little like I startled her. That kiss used to mean something. Now it felt like clocking in at a job I didn't even remember applying for. Hey, I muttered, pulling off my boots. Hey, she said back, still scrolling. I headed to the kitchen, grabbed a beer, cracked it open. The fizz was louder than either of us. When I sat down on the far end of the couch, she finally set her phone on her lap. I thought she was going to tell me something about her day, or maybe ask about mine. But instead she just stared. Then she said it, calm, like she was reading a weather report. I like you, Jack. I just don't think I'm in love with you anymore. No warning, no build-up, just a surgical strike straight to the chest. I blinked. I actually blinked like I didn't hear her right. My throat tightened up, and all I could manage was a little nod. Okay, I said. Thanks for the clarification. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I didn't even look at her. I just stood up, beer still in hand, and walked to the bathroom. Not to cry or scream or punch the wall, I just needed to sit on the closed toilet lid and breathe. While you're listening, tell us which country you're watching from. My heart was pounding, but my face felt frozen. Her voice kept echoing in my head. Not in love with you anymore, like it was a switch you flip off after brushing your teeth. When I came back out, she was back on her phone, like she didn't just nuke the relationship with one sentence. I sat back down, stared at the TV, and said nothing. I didn't need to. Something between us had broken wide open, and there was no fixing it. I stayed on that couch with her that night like nothing happened. We watched some dumb show in silence, both pretending like the words, "I'm not in love with you anymore," hadn't been said out loud an hour earlier. I didn't ask her to explain. And she didn't offer. The air between us felt thick. Not with anger, worse. It was empty. Cold. It was crazy how fast something could rot once the illusion was gone. I kept watching her out of the corner of my eye. The way she scrolled Instagram, like she was bored out of her mind, thumb dragging slow and lazy. She didn't even try to hide it. That's when it really started hitting me. This girl used to light up when I walked in the door. Used to grab my hand under the table at restaurants or laugh at my dumb jokes, even when they weren't funny. We were never flashy, but it felt like home. Easy. I remember moving into this apartment with her like it was yesterday. She'd picked out the place, said it had character. We spent a whole weekend building IKEA furniture, bickering over throw pillows, ordering pizza on the floor surrounded by boxes. We were building a life, and now I felt like I was squatting in someone else's space. I stopped waking up early to make her coffee. That was the first shift. Every morning for almost 2 years, I'd set the pot to brew before she even got out of bed. She liked it with a splash of oat milk and 1 sugar. That tiny routine somehow felt like love. But the next morning, I walked right past the machine. I made a single cup for myself and left her side of the counter untouched. She didn't say anything, but I saw her eyes land on the empty spot where her mug used to sit. I stopped texting her during the day, too. No more check-ins, no memes, no "how's work?" Nothing. I didn't ignore her if she messaged me, but I wasn't reaching out first anymore. She noticed. 3 days in, she finally asked, "Is everything okay with you?" I shrugged. "Everything's fine." She didn't push, just stared at me for a second, like she was trying to read a new version of me that didn't speak her language anymore. We'd gone from partners to strangers sharing rent. The bedroom was dead quiet now. No late-night talks, no lazy Sunday mornings. I'd roll over and scroll my own phone, back turned, waiting for her to leave for work. It was easier than I expected. Honestly, it pissed me off that it was this easy. But once I stopped carrying the weight of her mood swings, her silence, her cold shoulder, man, it was like breathing for the first time in months. I'd always thought things were just going through a rough patch. I blamed stress, her work, my work, her being glued to her phone all the time. But deep down, I think I knew. She'd checked out. I just hadn't wanted to admit it. Now, she was starting to realize what emotional distance really looked like, and she didn't like it one bit. She started hanging around the apartment more. No more dinner with friends, no more late-night FaceTime laughs behind closed doors. Suddenly she was around, making small talk, asking what I wanted for dinner like we were playing house again. I didn't bite. I wasn't cruel. I didn't ignore her. I just stopped trying. We were roommates. That's it. She made some weak joke one night while I was doing dishes. "You're really not going to tell me about your day anymore?" I shrugged. "Didn't think you cared." She opened her mouth to respond, then shut it. That right there, that pause, that was her first taste of regret. And me, I felt nothing. Just wiped my hands on a towel, walked past her, and turned off the kitchen light. I woke up the next morning before the sun even hit the blinds. Not because I had to, just couldn't sleep. My mind was sharp, clear. That fog I'd been dragging around for months. It was gone. I got up, stretched, and walked straight into the kitchen. The house was quiet. The kind of quiet that used to make me feel alone, but now it felt clean. I turned on the coffee machine, grabbed one mug, mine, and stood there while it brewed. I didn't even glance at her mug, didn't reach for the oat milk or her stupid little cinnamon shaker she liked to sprinkle on top like she was at a cafe. I sipped my coffee leaning against the counter, the morning still gray outside the window. Then I heard her footsteps. Sarah shuffled in, hair a mess, wearing one of my old hoodies. I didn't say a word, just sipped. She walked straight to the coffee pot and froze. Her hand hovered over it like she was trying to process what she was seeing, or not seeing. "You didn't make any for me?" she asked, her voice still scratchy from sleep. I didn't even look at her. Nope. A pause. Why? I finally turned my head and met her eyes. Roommates make their own coffee. She stared at me like I just slapped her. Like the idea of her having to pour water and scoop grounds herself was completely foreign. "Oh," she said. "Okay." She didn't move, just stood there in front of the machine, like it might suddenly change its mind and brew her a cup. I walked past her, coffee in hand. "Should be enough in the grinder. You just have to push the button." That was it. No fight, no drama, just facts. I sat on the couch, turned on the TV, and didn't bother asking if she wanted to watch something else. She eventually made her coffee, loudly, slamming the cabinet door, banging the spoon against the counter like I'd committed some great betrayal. But I didn't flinch. We sat in silence, her curled up at the far end of the couch like a kicked dog, and me exactly where I wanted to be. I wasn't being cruel, I was being done. Later that day she tried to act normal again, asked what I wanted to do for dinner. I said I was ordering something for myself. She blinked a few times and nodded. "Cool," she muttered, walking off. That was the first real crack I saw in her. Not the fake confusion from before, not the passive little questions. This was different. She didn't know how to respond because the old rules didn't apply anymore. She was used to me chasing, fixing, filling in the space between us with effort. But I'd pulled the plug. That night, I left the dishes in the sink, hers too. We used to tag team that stuff. Now I didn't see the point. She lingered in the hallway like she was about to say something, but then turned and walked into the bedroom without a word. I stayed up on the couch longer than I needed to, watching reruns and feeling more human than I had in months. It wasn't joy. It wasn't revenge. It was freedom. All that time I spent trying to hold something together that was already falling apart. I didn't even realize how heavy it had gotten until I set it down. And now that it was down, I wasn't picking it back up. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of typing, rapid, relentless tapping, her thumbs flying across her phone screen. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, back to me, phone glowing in her lap. She didn't say good morning, didn't even glance over. I got up, stepped over the pile of laundry she'd left by the door, and walked out without a word. In the kitchen, I brewed 1 cup of coffee, mine again. It wasn't even out of spite anymore. It was just habit now, my habit, not ours. While I sipped, I opened my laptop for the first time in weeks, Logged into my old car forum, something I used to waste hours on before life with Sarah started revolving around dinner plans and her friend group. I didn't realize how much I'd missed it. I spent the morning scrolling through restoration projects, half-built engines, guys arguing about torque specs. For the first time in a long time, my head wasn't wrapped around her mood or what was wrong in the apartment. Around noon, I grabbed my keys and went for a drive. I didn't even tell her I was leaving, just needed air. I stopped by an old buddy's garage, shot the shit for a while, helped him lift a busted transmission into place. Grease under my nails, sun on my neck. It felt like me. Not Jack and Sarah, just Jack. When I got home, she was still on the couch, blanket around her, face glued to her phone. Her eyes were puffy. I could tell she'd been crying, probably dumping her version of the story into a group chat, fishing for sympathy. "Hey," she said, soft. I nodded, didn't stop walking. Dinner was frozen lasagna. I pulled it out, split it in half without asking, plopped it on 2 plates and set them on the table. We ate in silence, forks clinking, chairs creaking, the clock ticking louder than usual. She didn't try to start a conversation, didn't ask about my day, didn't reach for my hand or joke about the food being dry. For once, she just sat there, chewing slow, like the words were stuck in her throat. After dinner, she did the dishes without me saying a word. I stayed on the couch, flipping through channels, not really watching anything. It was quiet, but not the bad kind. The quiet actually felt good. Still. Clean. She walked past me once, headed to the bedroom, and paused, like she was waiting for something, for me to say anything. I didn't. Later that night, we both laid in bed, backs turned, a mile between us, even though we were only a few inches apart. I stared at the ceiling, her soft breathing the only sound in the room, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel anxious. Didn't feel that pressure in my chest, like I had to fix something before it broke. I felt fine, like I could finally breathe without checking if she was happy first. Meanwhile, I could almost feel her thinking, her body tense, still. She didn't roll over or try to touch me, but I could tell. She knew. This wasn't just a mood. This wasn't a Jack needs space moment. This was the beginning of something she couldn't control. And even if she didn't say it out loud, she knew damn well something in me had shut off. The next morning, she made both our coffees, set mine down in front of me without saying anything, then went and sat at the table like she hadn't just broken a weeks-long routine. I didn't touch the cup. After a minute, she asked, "You're not going to drink it?" I looked over. Didn't ask for it. She gave me this half laugh, half sigh like I was being difficult on purpose. But I wasn't. I just didn't need it. Or her effort. That was when I noticed it, the shift in her. She'd stopped floating through the apartment like she owned the air. Now she looked unsure of herself, nervous, like she was waiting for me to screw up so she could say, "See, you're the problem too." Only I wasn't screwing up. I was coasting. A couple days later, she came home with groceries. Stuff I used to like. Real bacon, not that turkey crap she always bought. The good coffee creamer, some chocolate-covered almonds I hadn't had in months. She unpacked them slow, kept looking over like she was waiting for me to notice. I noticed. I just didn't care. That night, she asked if I wanted to cook together like we used to. I said, I already ate. Truth was, I hadn't. I just didn't want to fake anything for her anymore. No pretending we were still in sync. No reaching across that dead space between us. Her face twisted up for half a second. Like she wanted to say something sharp, but she swallowed it. She was trying now. You could feel it, but it was too late. The more she pushed little things, music she used to mock suddenly playing on the speaker, new outfits she wore around the house, just because, casually mentioning a movie I liked, the more obvious it became that she was spiraling. And I was detached. I didn't ask about her day, didn't ask who she was texting, or why she suddenly had time to sit next to me on the couch instead of scrolling through TikTok in the bedroom. I didn't fill in her silences or help her carry conversations when they stalled. I let her sit in the quiet she'd made. She'd been waiting for me to chase her. She thought I'd pull out all the stops to win her back, like this was some rom-com where the guy makes a speech in the rain and everything goes back to normal. But I wasn't in that movie. I was in real life. And in real life, If someone tells you they don't love you anymore, you believe them. I think that's what scared her the most, that I did exactly what she asked, backed off, stopped caring, stopped fighting, and now she was alone in the mess. The irony? She wanted freedom. Now she had it, and I was the one finally breathing. No more eggshells, no more wondering if she was in a mood or if I did something wrong. No more trying to pull affection from someone who treated love like a favor. She started trying harder, making small talk, asking if I needed anything when she went to the store, even sat next to me during the game one night. Pretended to be into it. I nodded, gave her space on the couch, said, "It's a rerun." She didn't move. She wanted a reaction, anything, anger, jealousy, desperation. But I had nothing left to give. One night, she finally snapped. Not loud, not dramatic. Just said, "Are you ever going to talk to me like you used to?" I looked up from my phone. "You told me you weren't in love with me. Why would I?" She didn't answer, just stood there, blinking, like she couldn't remember why she'd ever said those words out loud in the first place. But I remembered, and I wasn't carrying her regret. She followed me into the kitchen, arms crossed, jaw tight. "You really just don't care anymore, do you?" she asked, voice sharper than it had been in weeks. I grabbed a glass from the cabinet, filled it with water, took a slow sip before answering. "I cared for a long time, Sarah. Too long." She scoffed. "So that's it? You're just done now? You don't even want to try?" I leaned back against the counter, kept my tone flat. "I did try. You said you weren't in love with me anymore. That's not exactly something you come back from." "You're being passive-aggressive," she snapped. "You act like nothing matters. You walk around here like a ghost. You ignore me, avoid me." "I'm not avoiding you," I cut in. "I'm just not chasing anymore." She took a step closer. "So what? You're punishing me now? Because I was honest with you?" I looked her dead in the eye. "You weren't honest. You were careless. You dropped that line like it was no big deal, like you were talking about a movie you didn't like anymore." She flinched, just a little. I kept going. "You didn't want to break up. You wanted a reaction. You wanted me to prove I was worth loving. But I'm done begging for something that should have been freely given." Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. "I'm not the villain here," she finally said. "You're acting like I did something unforgivable." "I didn't say unforgivable. I said final." She shook her head, eyes glassy. "God, you're so cold. You act like none of it meant anything to you." "Everything meant something," I said. "That's the problem. It meant too much to me and not enough to you. And now, we're just living the result." "You're twisting everything I say," she snapped. "You think you're being calm and mature, but you're just being a jerk. You think this makes you strong? Emotionally detached? It doesn't." I pushed off the counter and set the glass down. "You want to fight because that's what you're used to. You're waiting for me to break, cry, scream. But I've got nothing left to spill for you, Sarah. You emptied me out months ago, and I didn't even notice." She looked stunned, like I'd punched her in the stomach with the truth. "You made a choice," I said. "I'm just living by it now." "People say things they don't mean all the time," she shouted. "And people mean things they don't say. You picked yours." She started pacing, fingers tangled in her hair, breathing hard like she was gearing up to throw more words at me. But I didn't give her the space. I stepped past her, grabbed my keys off the hook. "Where are you going?" she asked, voice cracking. "For air. You always walk away, and you always push too late." I opened the door, paused for a second, looked back once. "This isn't a punishment, Sarah. This is peace. You just don't like how it feels now that it's yours too." I walked out, letting the door click shut behind me. No slam, no drama, just clarity. I came back late the night before, dropped my keys on the counter, and walked straight to bed. She was already under the covers, facing the wall. I didn't say anything, just slid in, turned away, and let silence do what it does best. When I got up in the morning, she was still asleep. I went through my routine like it was any other day. Coffee, toast, checking the weather, avoiding eye contact with her photo on the fridge. She walked into the kitchen maybe 20 minutes later, already dressed, makeup done. She was trying too hard, and it showed. I gave her a nod. "Happy birthday," I said, flat and simple. Her smile flickered for a second. "Thanks." She stood there like she was expecting something else. I grabbed my keys and wallet, downed the last sip of coffee, and said, "All right, I'm heading out. Got a lot to do today." That was it. No gift, no plans, not even a hug. When I got back that afternoon, the apartment looked different. Balloons on the table, a tiny cake from the grocery store, white frosting, badly written name, 2 candles just sitting there like they were waiting for purpose. She lit them when I walked in, smiled like we were in some cheesy memory montage. "You want to eat now or later?" she asked, voice light but strained. I dropped my bag by the couch. "You can go ahead. I'm not really in a cake mood." She blinked, lips parting like she wanted to argue but wasn't sure how. "You don't want any?" "Nah." I kicked off my shoes. "You should enjoy it, though." "Looks nice." She stood there, holding a knife in her hand, frozen in front of the cake, like the party was happening in a different apartment, and she was the only one who showed up. I flopped down on the couch, grabbed the remote, and flicked through channels without watching anything. She sat at the table and quietly ate a slice. No music, no friends over, just balloons slowly deflating in a silent room. By the time dinner rolled around, she was pacing, not in a rush, just aimless. I think she was hoping I'd eventually snap out of it and throw together some last-minute plan. Finally, she broke. "So, are we doing anything tonight?" I looked over at her, shrugged. "We could grab a pizza or something if you're hungry." She stared at me like I'd grown another head. "Pizza?" "Yeah," I said, standing up. "Domino's still does the 2-for-1, right?" That was the moment it hit her. You could see it in her face. Her shoulders dropped, eyes dimmed, hands clenched around her phone. "This is really what we've come to?" she asked, voice almost a whisper. I nodded. "Yeah, this is what it looks like when the person you checked out on stops carrying the weight for both of you." She didn't say anything, just turned and walked into the bedroom, closing the door gently behind her. I didn't follow. I ordered a medium pepperoni and ate it alone in front of the TV. No candles, no music, no pretending. This wasn't revenge. This was her living in the silence she created, finally realizing love doesn't wait around for convenience. I tossed the empty pizza box in the trash, wiped my hands on a paper towel, and sat back down on the couch. The bedroom door was still shut. The silence in the apartment felt heavier than usual, but not in a way that bothered me, just final. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the folded lease agreement. I'd signed it that afternoon. Small 2-bedroom across town. Month to month. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. A few minutes later, she walked out. No makeup. Hair tied up. Eyes a little red. She looked like she'd been sitting on the edge of the bed the whole time, thinking. I didn't wait for her to speak. "I found a place," I said, "moving out by the end of next month." She blinked like I was speaking another language. "Wait, what?" "I already signed, month to month. It's not far. We can split the rest of the lease here, but I'm done after that." Her mouth dropped open, but nothing came out right away. Then, "You're serious?" "Yeah." She walked a few steps toward me, arms crossed, voice suddenly panicked. "You didn't even talk to me about this. You just decided?" I nodded. "I don't need a discussion to move on, Sarah. We've had all the conversations we're going to have." But she stopped, then tried again. "Can we at least try to fix it?" I raised an eyebrow. "Now?" Her voice cracked. "I didn't mean for things to end like this." "No one ever does," I said. "But you made a choice. I'm just following through on it." She stepped closer, hands clenched. "I was going through something. I didn't mean I stopped loving you. I just didn't feel it at that moment. People say things in the heat of emotion. You said it like you were commenting on the weather." She winced. I stayed sitting, calm, steady. "You told me you weren't in love with me. That was the last real thing you said to me. Everything after that's just been noise." She shook her head, voice rising. "So that's it? I screw up one thing and you just give up?" "This wasn't one thing, Sarah. This was months of slow rot. You stopped caring and I kept giving. You turned off the light and now you're mad that I stopped sitting in the dark." She stared at me, breathing fast. "So that's it? You're just gonna leave?" "Yeah, I am." She sat down across from me, like her legs finally gave out. "I didn't think you'd actually go. I thought..." You thought I'd keep holding on. I leaned forward. But love doesn't survive on hope alone, and I'm not here to prove I'm worthy anymore. Tears welled up in her eyes, but I didn't flinch. I didn't move. You can't just shut it off, she whispered. You did, I said. She pressed her palms against her face and let out this choked sound that wasn't quite a sob, more like disbelief being forced out of her lungs. I stood up and walked to the bedroom, pulled open the closet, and grabbed the bag I'd already half packed. I slung it over my shoulder and walked back past her. I'm not leaving tonight, I said, but I'm leaving soon. This is just the last stretch of a relationship that already ended. She didn't follow me, didn't scream, didn't beg. I walked out to the balcony, zipped up my jacket, and leaned on the railing, breathing in the cold air. The city noise hummed in the distance, steady and uncaring. For the first time in years, I felt like I was standing still while everything else kept moving. And that was okay. A week later, I moved into the new place. Second floor, no elevator, paint peeling a little on the front door. But it was mine. No shared closet, no awkward silences in the kitchen, no pretending. I spent the first 2 nights eating takeout on the floor, boxes still taped shut around me. No TV, just music playing off my phone and the hum of freedom in the air. I started texting old friends again. Guys I hadn't talked to in months because every night used to be Sarah and her shows, her moods, her silence. Now, I had time. I had space. On Saturday, I hit the garage, spent hours under the hood of a buddy's old Mustang, grease in my nails, sweat on my back. Nobody calling me home early. Nobody asking me to turn down or explain where I was. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel angry. I just felt done. Sarah. She sent a few texts at first, stuff like, hope the move went okay and let me know if you need anything. I didn't respond, then nothing for a few days. Then today, this one came through. Can we talk? Just that. I stared at the screen for a second. Thought about the nights I used to wait for her to look up from her phone, the way I used to bend myself into knots to keep things feeling okay. Then I locked the phone and set it face down on the table. I wasn't going back. That night, I poured a drink, sat on my secondhand couch, and turned on a game I actually wanted to watch. No commentary, no tension crawling up my spine. Just the sound of the announcers, the crowd, and me breathing easy. The room wasn't big. The lighting was a little harsh. There was a weird creak in the kitchen floor every time I walked past the fridge. But it was quiet, and for the first time in a long time, that quiet didn't feel empty. It felt earned.